We now turn to the Lewis A. Conner Memorial Lecture, established in 1937 to honor the American Heart Association's first president and first editor of the American Heart Journal. The initial Conner Lecture was presented in 1938. This year we will hear from Eric Dishman, Director of the Precision Medicine Initiative Cohort Program at the National Institutes of Health. He leads the NIH effort to build the Precision Medicine Landmark Longitudinal Research Study of more than 1 million U.S. volunteers to expand the ability to improve health and treat disease through precision medicine. Mr. Dishman brings to his role his experience as a social scientist, researcher, entrepreneur, and patient advocate. Notably, he understands the patient experience at a very personal level as he has battled a rare form of kidney cancer for 23 years, while also advocating for more than 1,000 other cancer patients. And he became cancer-free because of early access to developments in precision medicine. He has pioneered some of the largest research and policy programs in the nation, focusing on telehealth, personal health records, independent living technologies for seniors, and behavioral markers for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, diabetes, and heart disease. He's a global leader in home and community-based care and is recognized for incorporating the study of people and cultures as well as other social methods in the design of new technologies. As Eric joins us on stage, please enjoy this brief video.
We are one nation, one people. When called upon to give from within, we come together and find that our capacity to help others is limitless. Here, we are fearless. What lies inside all of us is more than data. It's life. It's more than insight and medical research. It's vision and honor and compassion. What's flowing through America's veins is its diversity. The next great breakthrough will be found in each and every one of us. And what we find there will unlock mysteries, heal the sick, and eradicate disease. We ask for 1 million individuals to come forward and stand on this landmark in history. We ask America to do, once again, what she has always done. Lead the way forward. We're one nation, one people. But all of us are different, and it's those very differences that will lead to answers for generations to come.
All right, that was exciting music. I need trumpets to play every single time I go on stage. It is a great honor to be here. You have been out here for a long time. I have been pacing backstage, so I have 9,000 steps. So if you need to do your feet on the floor so your pedometer gives you some credit. I come from the tech world. I know they're not smart enough to know that you're not walking, so you'll get some extra steps there. It is a great honor to do this. I'm going to talk about accelerating precision health for all, and I'll share a little bit of my own personal story. At the end of the day, I am a patient and a patient advocate. I've played lots of roles. I'd have lots of jobs and lots of careers, but that is the perspective that I'm going to bring to today, as well as that of a social scientist. And it is a great honor. I mean, I am not an expert in cardiology. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a genomicist. I'm learning what that means now that I work at the National Institutes of Health. But to deliver this lecture named for Dr. Conner, as I read about him and learned about him, what an amazing thinker well ahead of his time. Because if you think about the sort of push to move beyond diagnosis and treatment to include prevention and rehab, you think about his efforts to make sure that we're including economic and social consequences of diseases, bringing patients and patient advocates together, and really doing a large cohort study in the Army of sort of looking at more than 4 million men signing up during World War I and starting to think about the comparative analysis that could be done. If only now I need to do a 4 million person cohort, not just one. So it's a really honor to be here. Now, the other perspective I bring is I am from the land of brown meals. I'm from the South. So, we are making sure that we eat, a healthy dose of chicken and vegetables, fried chicken, fried okra, one of my favorite meals, and I get lots of nuts in the form of pecan pie. I grew up with that. That is sort of me. I am made of it. And then I am obsessed with Snickers. My mother was pregnant the whole time. The whole time she was pregnant with me, she ate Snickers, so it's not my fault. That was a social determinant well before I ever came into being, and I eat my Snickers. So I went and did one of the calculators online. It would not let me put 666. I mean, I couldn't hit enter because I thought, my gosh, my cholesterol and all that. My risk factors for heart disease are so high that I'm sort of a poster child. And I'm so relieved because I may need help at any minute, and I'm sure some of you could run up and actually help with that. But in all seriousness, in my own life, this is me when I was 16. I was a caregiver for my grandmother in rural North Carolina. I come from a family of stroke and heart disease, and she suffered from it as well. We had a euphemism back then. We didn't know it at the time, but we would talk about grandma's not on her high blood pressure medicine, and she's sort of in that spell again. That was the euphemism we would use for it. And we didn't understand at the time. Eventually, we called what she had Alzheimer's. But really, if you think back, it was the number of small strokes that she was having sort of taking out and vascular-based dementia as we now understand it. And being a caregiver for her, it was also the time in my life where I first started trying to use new technologies to help with her quality of life. She baked pecan pie, she baked chocolate cakes, and as the dementia was increasing, she would go down at 2 in the morning and turn on the oven. And one time she almost burned the whole kitchen down before my grandfather got in there. Because, she's thinking, I want to make a cake, but she would put like the whole thing of flour in the oven and catch it on fire because she really couldn't remember the sequence of making a cake. And at first we just unplugged the oven, but when the heat wouldn't come on, she would take furniture and sort of beat the oven, and she was going to cause damage to her in the kitchen. So I went to Radio Shack, I got some sensors, a little phone box, and I was trying to create something that would alert us that if she was trying to do this activity of daily living, of baking, let my grandfather know, or call us in Charlotte, and we would try to call him back and intervene. It did not work very well. That was difficult technology to do several decades ago. This was me at age 19 when I was diagnosed with a rare form of kidney cancer and said, you have 9 months to live, Eric. And they put me on a very nasty chemotherapy. My oncologist now is so young, when he comes in, I'm like, do you need a ride home or is your mother picking you up? It's totally the Doogie Howser experience. He looks back on the chemo that we put me on in those days, these big platinum-based sort of World War I and II mustard gas agents in smaller doses, and says, I don't know how you survived. My wife was smart. We adopted a dog from the pound, so that's my first week of chemotherapy. And I did not die in 9 months. I did not know then what it was like to be a proactive patient and get your own data and understand the science behind you. But another patient met me in a waiting room, and she had outlived uterine cancer longer than anybody at the time. She was an actuary, so she knew statistics better than I do. I was a qualitative social scientist. I got through my statistics class. And we were at the Duke University Library after I was supposed to have treatment, and we were looking up, and after about an hour and a half, she said, Eric, they don't know anything about you. There were 3 studies that had been done on my ostensibly rare form of kidney cancer, and she said, and everybody in it was over the age of 65. They don't know what a 19-year-old looks like this. And in some ways, even though I didn't have the language for it there, that was the beginning of the era of well-intentioned, imprecision medicine that I went through for the next 23 years. 57 rounds of chemotherapy, immunotherapy, radiation therapy. Interferon was going to save my life. No, it almost killed me. Interleukin was going to save my life. It almost killed me. And as usual, cancer gets all the attention, but what I never get to talk about, but great here, is the amount of cardiotoxicity events I had as a result of these well-intentioned drugs. In fact, I almost died 4 times during this 23 years. 2 of them were hospital-borne infections, a terrible place to be when they wipe out your immune systems. But the other 2 were both specialists putting me on different medications, not having a system to see what each of them have done, and causing problems to my heart and cardiovascular system. So, this starts to get at the issue of we need to understand health in all of its complexities, in all of its comorbidities. So it's not just the number of people who have heart disease or stroke, but is those systems tied to so many aspects of many conditions. And we can't keep studying them in isolation and in those silos. As a social scientist, I spent 15 years doing field work, mostly of dual eligible, seniors living in poor conditions, eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid, working on independent living technologies and chronic care management. This is Philip from one of those studies. He had multiple chronic conditions, he had heart disease, and it was impossible for him to manage his meds when his wife died. She had managed his meds for literally 2 decades. And he was just lost without her. So he's here telling me, what am I going to do? I don't understand all these meds. And he had been hospitalized and called emergency rooms numerous times with heart and chest pain problems because he was really messing up on his meds. This is what it's like out in the world, right? We are comorbid, complex, adaptive systems and individuals with a system that doesn't treat us like any of those things. So the last bit of this is, as an entrepreneur, I help to design and productize platforms and technologies. If my tombstone reads, "Here lies Eric Dishman, he ended hospitals that we know them. Because we finally do hospital at home and in the community, I will be relieved." I am not anti-hospital, but we're spending the wrong resources on the wrong things and doing chronic care management in these large institutions that should be focused on the extreme conditions that need that expertise, that need that technology that only a hospital can house. So I've been pushing telehealth for a very long time and seeing the role that that could play. And what I would argue is, with all those hats that I've worn, what I have continued to see is that we don't have the ability and often don't have enough science and research to do the kinds of precision care that we need to do across all health conditions. And that's sort of the spirit of what I'm going to talk about today in terms of the mission of the All of Us research program. It was originally called the Precision Medicine Initiative Cohort Program. We changed the name. A lot of researchers are like, "I don't like the new name. It's too cheesy." It's like, it's not for you. We have to build a relationship with more than 1 million people, over-representing and over-recruiting those who have been left behind by traditional biomedical research. This is for them. That's who the name is for. Our mission here is to accelerate health research and medical breakthroughs, enabling individualized prevention, treatment, and care. So not just a better pill. I'm not anti-drug. They've saved my life. But if that's all we get out of this precision medicine stuff is more therapies and not real strategies for dealing with prevention and dealing with the social issues of health, then we will have failed as a nation. So this is our mission. And to do this, we have 3 strategic objectives. The first is nurture relationships with 1 million or more people who are participant partners in this effort from all walks of life for decades. This is a longitudinal study. If we're going to get data from people ongoingly, we have to build a relationship with them and give them value back, as well as include them in the creation of the science, in the creation of the platform, in the creation of the ethics that we're carrying forward. If we do that, we will build what we believe to be the largest, richest biomedical data set ever, and want to make that easy, safe, and free to access. More brain power per problem, more researchers able to use it. And that leads to the third strategic objective. If we build it, will they come? Partnerships with AHA and other key organizations are key. We don't have the tax dollars to do all of the science. We have the tax dollars to build this research resource, so you don't have to go through the trouble of building a massive cohort or collecting all of this deep phenotypic or genotypic or behavioral or environmental data. We need others to come along onto that journey, and if we build it, will they come? So to get a sense of the program, I've mentioned its rich longitudinal resource. People are going to be consented for a very long period of time, and they're consented and know that we want them to engage in helping to figure out what this research journey is going to be like for decades to come. A diversity of participants, significant focus on what we'll call UBR, and we'll be publishing some papers about this soon on our definition of underrepresented in biomedical research. There are too many communities, too many conditions left behind, and we're not doing the science, and thus we're not getting up the strategies and the cures for those particular people. And also a diversity of researchers. If we build this resource, I don't want just the top tier of biomedical scientists to use this. How do community colleges use it? How can more people play in the biomedical sandbox? How can more people actually use these tools without having to become a computer programmer just to do your science? So we'll be making investments that increase the brain power per problem by reaching out to many more diverse communities. The basic approach to get into our cohort, and we're in a beta phase now, I'll talk more about that in a moment, is through 2 paths. One's more traditional, what we call HPOs, health provider organizations. So we have a network of health provider organizations from small federally qualified health centers who are going to be a key part of our strategy to reach diverse communities, all the way to large players like the VA or Partners Health and many others. And that network will invite people who come in for a clinic visit to be part of the study, consent them, have them do their surveys, or they can go home and do them digitally, do a blood and urine draw, and so forth. The grand experiment in this is the other fork of this diagram, the direct volunteers. We want to make it so that anybody in the country can dial a 1-800 number and say, I want to be part of this, whether or not they're associated with any of our health provider organizations or any health provider organization. Or click on a web app or click on a phone and you too can be part of this. That infrastructure is challenging, and that's what we're building out. So think of this as the Framingham Heart Study, but larger than Framingham, larger than the state of Massachusetts, the entire country, and a much more diverse audience, and not just focused on cardiovascular health, but all health. How does the health of those 1 million people evolve over a period of time? And what are the complicated factors, and what are the data types that are going to tell us how do we develop precision approaches to them? This is just an example of some of the diversity of data types we're planning to capture with these diverse participants. So environmental data, understand, we already know a lot about zip code greater than genetic code, but collecting that kind of environmental data over time, biological and clinical data, social data, understanding the social and cultural environments that they've been in over time, as well as behavioral data with everything from surveys to wearable devices and so forth. These are the major components of the program. A data and research center, their job is to build out this big data infrastructure and all of this secure and de-identify this data and make it available for researchers to use. The biobank, just for the first version of our protocol, and we'll have a new version every 2 or 3 years, we're going to collect 35 million vials that need to be stored and frozen, both as a resource that we will run assays on for all million people and make that available as data, as well as people to come and say, hey, we want to do an ancillary study with a group of people, or we want to collect the samples for a sub-study and use that resource for that. We've built out a participant center. It goes to the Scripps Institute, and they're developing our mobile health or consumer health device strategy, but also developing that direct volunteer capability. This is a huge grand experiment. Nobody's done this at this scale before. The Participant Technology Systems Center is all of those technologies, whether it's a website or a phone app, that face participants for those who are digital, with helpers who can help if you're not digital yourself. I mentioned the health provider organizations. And last but not least is the communications and engagement. Everybody asks me, Eric, are you losing sleep about security? I'm like, yes, but we're doing the best practices that industry and government know how to do. What I most worry about, especially in the climate and culture we live in right now in the United States, is engaging diverse communities who have too often not only been left behind, but actually harmed by government-funded research. How do we build that trust and let them know this time things are going to be different? These are the current consortium members. Far too many slides to see, but if you look at the top there, that's the direct volunteer network partners. And you see some big players like Quest, EMSI. EMSI does in-home physical evaluations for almost every insurance company. So we can't afford to do it for 1 million people, but for those who can't travel or frail and vulnerable in remote communities, we can actually come to your home so you don't have to go to the research place to do your research. So much of our research past is built on those who are close to or have access to an academic medical center. This is about distributing the power of research to live where people live, work, and play as much as possible. So those players can do that. Now, we can't afford to turn that capacity on, but those players can reach where 94-95% of every person in the country lives within 20 to 45 minutes. We can't afford to turn all that capacity on at one time, so we'll do things regionally. So version 1 of protocol, hey, we're coming to the town, Pacific Northwest. We're going to do biosample collection during this period of time. So the basic protocol, and we'll make these slides available to everybody, and I put a lot more detail in back. You can also just go to joinallofus.org or allofus.nih.gov, and you can see the whole protocol for version 1. We're enrolling 18 and above right now, but we're working on our plan for children. They do consent for the general study, understand that they will be followed up for multiple other aspects of the program later, consent to share their electronic health record data if they have it. All of those health provider organizations can send it. That was part of their award to prove that they could do a data sprint and send the EHR data in the correct formats. Surveys, simple physical measurements, and then blood and urine. Unless there's a no blood stick, we'll do saliva as a backup. So this is the basics of version 1 protocol with a whole lot more detail online and in the backup there. So we're in a closed beta phase right now. I have 25 years in Silicon Valley. I am bringing iterative, user-centered design where you launch when ready and right. And I keep telling members of Congress this and everybody else. It's like, you don't just build a big data platform, then secure data overnight. You don't just build relationships with some of the most vulnerable populations in the country overnight. We're planning to launch in the spring nationally, but right now you need a code to be able to get in there and get into the closed beta. So you can go to joinallofus.org, learn about the protocol, learn about the program, but if you go to sign up, it'll say, unless you're associated with one of our health provider organizations or those direct volunteer sites, not ready. But in spring, have at it. And I hope everybody in here will come and join or at least learn about the program. So I want to close with some research opportunities that I think are particularly germane to this audience. As we build this resource, we're going to need more and more ideas from brilliant scientists, and you've seen a whole parade of them out here today, and it's been a great pleasure to meet many of them backstage. So we work a lot with NHLBI, the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute at NIH, and Dr. Gary Gibbons there, who many of you know. He was recently in circulation and talked a little bit about the power of these large cohort programs that we're doing. So I'll quote him: the ability to integrate cellular, molecular, clinical, and environmental data to account for differences in pathobiology and unique responses. There it is, right? I was a unique response. I was being treated as the average of all the people that happened to have been studied. And there weren't very many of them that were like me. The individual responses could enable a new era of clinical decision-making, clinical care algorithms, medical interventions tailored to the individual patient for the best outcome. I lived this. It was a whole genome sequence that saved my life after 23 years of cancer. They came back and said, well, we believe 90% of the $6 million of care we put you on for those 23 years was destined never to have worked. But the combination of all of my EHR data plus a whole genome sequence, their guess was, it looks like the mechanism that we think causes pancreatic cancer, and these drugs unfortunately don't work for pancreatic cancers, might work for you. I stayed off of dialysis for 2 more months, went on that chemo, and they came back and said, you're eligible for a transplant. And 6 years ago, an Intel employee, I ran Intel's health and life science business, donated to me, and I'm healthier now at 49 when I was 19 when this journey began. I want to bring the power of that to every person, to every condition. And the only way that we'll get there is to accelerate the science and research, share the data at a scale that none of us have ever had before, and then translate those discoveries into practice. So how might this help the community of researchers and scientists here? Can we shed light on the excess risk factors for South Asians, right? We know many people from South Asia don't have the normal risk profile that the great studies of this organization and NHLBI and others have created in the past. Let's understand the differences that make a difference in different communities. Can we determine the frequency of undiagnosed hypertrophic cardiomyopathy? I don't even know what that means. They just gave me those words to say. And it's not important for me to know that. It's important for you to know that and think about what else could you do with 1 million diverse people's worth of data and a rich set of phenotypes. Clopidogrel or Plavix, the correlation of genotype and outcome, where else can we do pharmacogenomics and know you, as a cardiovascular patient or stroke patient, should not even go on this drug because it's not going to work for you. It's going to cause harm. Wearables and other kinds of things enabling us to do undiagnosed atrial fibrillation. I worked on the first prototype 16 years ago of wearables to start to look at heart rate variability and stress, and as those diagnostics become more consumerized into consumer electronics, we have both responsibility to figure out how to do that in the right way, but also to figure out, are these devices helpful? Are they collecting research grade data that we can do and use for both research and clinical purposes over time? Can we do a comprehensive survey of sudden cardiac death to determine risk stratification? That will be a theme of a lot of the conditions, not just in the cardiovascular stroke space. We might not get it down to an individual, but do we have better subsets and categories? Will diabetes type 1 and type 2 become type 30, type 40, and we can better titrate to that particular community based on a set of behavioral, genetic, and social factors? That's the power of what we're doing. But these are just a few examples. What can you as providers and researchers and patients and caregivers, what should we focus on most? What would the power of these kinds of data types at scale do for you? I got to meet Nancy right as I took this job a little over a year ago. I've just come in as a Fed. I can barely find the bathroom. I'm still sorting through tons of paperwork because there's one thing as a federal employee we get, and it's tons of paperwork. And in comes Nancy and shows me the amazing things that this organization is doing. You already have a precision medicine platform. The My Research legacy is exactly what we want to do, but with the nation on a scale across all conditions. Make it easy for somebody to decide at the touch of a button that I want to share my data, not only with the All of Us research program, but I want to share it here. And also understand the implications of that, because those different organizations may have very different policies about what the data is going to be used for. Ethically and responsibly, we need to help people understand that as it becomes easier to do data liquidity and interoperability, which are still enormous challenges. We have a shared vision and goals for accelerating precision health. We have a shared vision and challenges of collecting the richer data types. You're already experiencing this, and I'm already learning and want to learn even more from what you're doing as you're trying to pull together multiple data types and throw them together in a mashup to see what really matters. The truth is somewhere in the middle of all of those. Your EHR is not the true story of your health. Your behavioral data or your diary is not the true story of your health. The environmental data, if we can collect it on you, is not the true story of your health. It's somewhere in the middle of all of that, and is the triangulation of these data types that will help us see in new ways. Imagine when the CT first came out. One of the earlier speakers today talked about that. You could see the world differently. Well, with these kinds of technologies and data types, what do you see differently, and what questions can we answer that we were never even able to ask before? And we have a shared vision and commitment to open up the data to more researchers. This is a free resource. We'll have tiered data access because we don't want people to go try to re-identify somebody because of their whole genome sequence. But we're working hard to figure out how can citizen scientists get access to all this data and ask questions about themselves, for themselves, and do the research for themselves. So in that spirit, I want to give you a heads up. March 21st through 23rd of next year, we're going to do an All of Us Research Priorities Workshop. To get this version 1 up and running, and we've got about 9,000 people that have been through it so far, about 6,000 have done our full first protocol. But what about the next 10 years? What about the next 50 years? What we need is every organization and every individual, and all of this, there'll be lots of press about it, to come share your research questions. Pretend that our whole program was just designed to move stroke and cardiovascular disease. What research questions would you want to ask? Well, what kinds of studies can answer those research questions? Well, what kinds of data needs to be captured to do those studies? Oh, what kinds of technologies or methods can you use to collect that data? And the more of those use cases that we get, the more powerful it will be. Because what we're going to try to do is say, hey, cardiovascular and stroke needs these 5 ingredients. By the way, cancer would also like them, and so would the folks working on neurological conditions. And we'll put that data in there so it can have multi-field impact. And if there's something that's so specific to a particular cardiovascular disease, then we'll invite people to come do a sub-study on a segment within that. Maybe we can't scale it to 1 million people because it's too expensive, but it will work with 10,000 with a particular approach. So I hope you'll participate. Cardiovascular and stroke and all of those issues are part of our scientific framework. If the ideas that you have don't fit this scientific framework, which is just a way we're going to organize the workshop, I don't care. Just share your ideas. And the squeakier your wheel gets the oil, as my grandmother always used to say to me. Squeak like crazy, and we'll have a bunch of cardiovascular and stroke use cases. It will suggest a bunch of data types, and this resource will be yours in all senses of the word. So this is just showing V1 out right now. 2.5 years, 3 years later, V2, then V3, then V4. Speak up as a community, and you're already learning with your own platforms, and help us know what will this platform of at least 1 million people, and there'll probably be many more millions of that over time, can do to accelerate the science, to accelerate the discoveries that are going to change people's lives in your particular area. So come play. Can't wait. It is for all of us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Eric. That was a terrific talk, and what a courageous person. Let's give him another round of applause. We now have a very special moment of recognition. To present this next distinguished award, it's my pleasure to welcome back to the stage American Heart Association CEO, Nancy Brown.
Many of you know Queen Latifah as a world-famous actress and singer. What you may not know is that she is also a passionate spokesperson for the American Heart Association's Rise Above Heart Failure campaign. Inspired by her mother, she has raised awareness and provided support to patients around the world. Her extraordinary leadership has reached countless individuals to help overcome this devastating illness that affects more than 6 million people in the United States alone. In honor of her wonderful contributions, John and I, on behalf of everyone at the American Heart Association, are honored to present the Woman of Distinction Award to Queen Latifah. Please join me in welcoming Queen to the stage.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. Hi. Hi. Wow. Thank you so much. This is such an incredible honor to be here to accept this award. It's the one award I wish I didn't have to get. As I look around this room, I see the faces of so many talented people who are saving lives and shaping the future of heart failure treatment. For this reason, being welcomed to this event is extremely humbling. Since 2015, I've been working with the American Heart Association and Novartis as part of the Rise Above Heart Failure movement, a national initiative aimed at preventing and managing heart failure in America through awareness, education, and support. You know better than anyone, HF continues to be a growing problem that requires all of our attention. I wanted to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all of you for all that you do to care for the 6.5 million people living with this condition in the United States, including my mom, Rita, who has been bravely managing her own heart failure for more than 10 years. With your help, we're continuing to build stronger relationships between HF patients and their healthcare providers. We know that providing patients with the knowledge they need to have informed conversations with their doctors often leads to better outcomes. I vividly remember the day my mom was diagnosed with heart failure. She, an energetic, dedicated high school art teacher, unexpectedly passed out in the classroom. And though she had mentioned feeling fatigued leading up to this day, my family had no idea what was wrong with her. After visiting specialists and physicians, she was eventually diagnosed with heart failure, and we were scared. We had a lot to learn, but we took small steps to learn about heart failure and what my mother could do to manage it. We learned to keep an eye on the important signs and symptoms every single day. This has turned out to be a true family effort, and I'm so proud of my relatives for jumping right in to throw away the salt shaker, learn new recipes, and of course to check in with my mom regularly just to see how she feels. My mom's professional care team has also been there for us every step of the way, including her doctors and nurses. You know, taking a true team approach has made all the difference when it comes to managing her heart failure. It's been over a decade since my mom's diagnosis, and I'm so thankful we've been able to manage her condition in the midst of continuing to grow together as a family. It's been very eye-opening for me to learn how little people know about HF. We still have a lot of work to do to increase awareness, especially about the signs and symptoms. And I'm confident that our collective efforts to shine a light on HF will inspire patients and caregivers to take a more active role in their care. Now, before I go, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank the American Heart Association for trusting me with bringing your message of awareness and hope to the public. And I'd be remiss not to also thank Novartis for all your collaboration over the past 2 years and for generously making this program possible. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can all rise above heart failure. Thank you.
Thank you, Queen. Everyone here knows that cardiovascular diseases and stroke are by far the most urgent threat to worldwide health today in terms of mortality, suffering, and economic burden. We also know that if diverse populations continue to be disproportionately affected, our ability to build healthier lives is compromised. While the challenges are great, the future is ours to define. That's why today I am so pleased to announce a new strategic business relationship between the American Heart Association and the X Prize Foundation. You may know X Prize from pioneering advances in space exploration, or from inspiring thousands of children in low-resource nations to learn to read through global literacy initiatives. X Prize creates grand challenge domains that encourage moonshot thinking to solve the unimaginable. Joining us here today to celebrate this announcement are Marcus Shingles, the CEO of the X Prize Foundation, and Paul Bungie, the Chief Scientist at X Prize. Will you please stand so we can thank you for this wonderful partnership? Together, the American Heart Association and X Prize will reimagine and bring to life health and well-being for people everywhere, not just for privileged populations. We will invite creative individuals from here and around the globe to design a roadmap, including prizes that can inspire courageous thinking and breakthrough solutions so people everywhere can live healthy lives. Bringing together the brightest minds in science and industry, innovators, and the voices of the underserved, we will solve seemingly unsolvable problems by redefining what the future can look like for people everywhere. Progress is impossible without change, and together we plan to make great change by envisioning a bold new footprint of health and well-being for all. Thank you again to our wonderful colleagues at X Prize for making this possible. When we created the American Heart Association's Institute for Precision Cardiovascular Medicine over 4 years ago, we set out to inspire scientific breakthroughs that best meet the needs of patients and health consumers. Since announcing our groundbreaking relationship with Amazon last year, our precision medicine platform now has nearly 370 million data points from 2.3 million individuals in 15 studies and 4 consortia. This remarkable progress is only the beginning. Our goal is to create the world's largest repository for genetics and clinical research that will change the way research is done and how patients are treated. The innovative nature of One Brave Idea under the leadership of Dr. Callum McRae has inspired a new fellowship program for young scientists, engineers, and data scientists to help end coronary heart disease. The generous philanthropic support of Drs. Tobia and Morton Mower will enable these fellowships to have a tremendous impact on training the next generation and on the One Brave Idea research enterprise. As many of you know, it takes 10 years on average for a new medicine to be commercialized in the marketplace at an average cost of $2.6 billion. Imagine if we could reduce the time to market by half. Patients are counting on us to bring new discoveries and new treatments, including medicines that are targeted, safe, affordable, and accessible. I'm delighted to announce the creation of the American Heart Association's Center for Accelerated Drug Discovery, launched today as part of a new strategic business relationship with the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Together, we will combine world-class technology and high-impact biology to develop a comprehensive reference atlas of cell protein targets to accelerate and hone drug discovery. Leveraging one of the world's most powerful computer facilities at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, we will create a simulated environment that precisely predicts how drugs bind to their target proteins and generate a robust drug discovery pipeline. Just as cloud technology is empowering researchers to uncover new patterns, identify new questions, and find new answers, machine learning will allow the biomedical community to validate targeted drug hypotheses that have higher probabilities of success while reducing time to market by potentially 50%. This novel approach could alleviate suffering from heart disease, stroke, and other diseases and chronic conditions. The American Heart Association's leading science, combined with the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory leading-edge computational engines, will speed progress and give rise to high-value treatments, making therapeutic innovations more readily available and more affordable. I hope you share my excitement for the opportunities these new activities can bring to our life-saving work. After all, the greatest and most worthwhile achievement in life is to improve the life of others. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. I know all of us are excited to see what these new partnerships will yield in terms of new breakthroughs. On behalf of all of us at the American Heart Association, we're so glad you're here with us this week. We hope you'll embrace the cutting-edge scientific insights you gain from your interactions, and as Nancy said, apply them to patients' lives every day. People are counting on us to build a bright new future for cardiovascular science. Let's work together to make the world a healthier place for all. Thank you, and this closes our opening session.